New York, on a gloomy December afternoon, rain poured down on the towering buildings of Wall Street as if testing the patience of those racing through the financial market. The rain was more than just cold drops of water. It symbolized the struggles, the invisible challenges that anyone stepping into this world had to face. Neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, blending with the hurried crowd moving swiftly under expensive umbrellas. No one wanted to slow down because of the rain. They had deals to close, important meetings to attend, and ambitious dreams that couldn't be delayed. Marcus Carter pulled up his coat collar, gripping his worn-out umbrella tightly. He stood under the awning of a building, both avoiding the rain and scanning through his list of applied companies. Not Harvard, not Wharton, just a recent graduate from an average university, without powerful connections or an impressive resume. But he had determination, the only thing that kept him moving forward in his search for an opportunity in the ruthless world of Wall Street. Across the street, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit stood hunched under another building's awning. He had no umbrella, and his polished leather shoes were starting to show water stains. The people walking past him all had their heads down, rushing to their destinations, ignoring his presence entirely. The man glanced around, shaking his head slightly, as if he had long accepted the indifference of this place. Marcus hesitated for a few seconds before crossing the street and raising his umbrella over the man. "Want to share some cover? I've got space, and I'm guessing you'd rather not stand there all day." Marcus spoke, keeping his tone casual, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The man looked up, his eyes momentarily surprised. He examined Marcus, then the umbrella, as if weighing whether to accept this unexpected act of kindness. Finally, he gave a slight smile. "You're the first person to say that to me on Wall Street," he said, his deep voice tinged with amusement. "Here, everyone has their own agenda. Everyone assumes others can handle themselves." Marcus shrugged. "I figure helping someone doesn't cost me anything. Unless, of course, you think standing under the same umbrella as me is a loss." The man chuckled, this time a genuine laugh. He shook his head and stepped slightly closer, moving under the umbrella. "No, I don't think that. It's just unusual." "Unusual how?" Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because on Wall Street everything comes with a price," the man replied, his voice slow and measured. "A cup of coffee, a meeting, a handshake. No one does anything without expecting something in return. Yet you offered to share your umbrella without asking for anything." Marcus smiled. "Maybe I just haven't learned the rules yet." The man was silent for a moment, then nodded. "Or maybe you're someone willing to change the rules." They stood there for a few moments in silence, the only sound being the steady patter of raindrops. Finally, the man turned to Marcus. "What are you doing here?" Marcus answered honestly about his job search, the rejections, the doors that had slammed shut in his face. He didn't hide the fact that he lacked a prestigious educational background or powerful connections, only hard work and perseverance. The man listened quietly, taking in every word. After a moment, he tilted his head toward the towering building behind him. "I come to Sterling and Cody tomorrow morning. Mention my name, Richard Sterling." Marcus blinked, barely believing what he had just heard. Richard Sterling, CEO of one of the top brokerage firms on Wall Street, was standing in front of him. He opened his mouth to say something, but then hesitated, furrowing his brow. "Why are you helping me?" Richard studied Marcus for a long moment before answering. "Because the way you react to this rain tells me a lot about how you'll react to life." Marcus blinked again, unsure if he fully grasped the meaning behind those words. Richard continued, his voice now carrying a more serious tone. You had no reason to help me, yet you did. Not because I could offer you something in return, but simply because you thought it was the right thing to do. He paused, a faint smirk forming. People like that are rare. Wall Street doesn't need more greed or cold ambition. It needs people willing to be different. Marcus stood still, letting the words sink in. Richard eyed him, as if making one final judgment. You shared your umbrella. Now, I'll share an opportunity. The rain continued to fall, but for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt as if sunlight was breaking through somewhere in the distance. Marcus stepped into the towering building of Sterling & Co. with an indescribable excitement. He could hardly believe that he was actually here, inside one of the top brokerage firms on Wall Street. He told himself that he would do well, that this was his chance to prove himself. He didn't have an elite degree, but he had diligence, determination, and an unyielding spirit. As he approached the front desk, a well-dressed receptionist greeted him with a professional smile. "Good morning. You must be Marcus Carter," she asked. "Yes, that's me," Marcus replied, trying to mask his nervousness. "Great. I'll take you to the intern workspace." She motioned for Marcus to follow her. When the elevator doors opened on a high floor, she led him through polished hallways where stockbrokers were busy at work, phones ringing non-stop, computer screens flashing with rapidly changing financial charts. Finally, they arrived at a spacious but simple room where the other interns were already gathered. Marcus scanned the room. They all looked young, well-dressed, and confident. As he stepped inside, a few people smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. A friendly-looking brunette guy extended his hand. "I'm Jake Patterson, intern from Wharton. Nice to meet you." Marcus shook his hand, feeling a bit relieved to be welcomed. The other interns introduced themselves, some from Harvard, others from Columbia, all from prestigious schools. When Marcus said his name, a few nodded, but some exchanged skeptical glances, as if wondering how someone without a top-tier background had gotten in. Then, a sharp voice interrupted. "All right, enough with the pointless introductions." Marcus turned to see a middle-aged man with a stern expression. His glasses rested precisely on the bridge of his nose, making his scrutinizing gaze even sharper. "Andrew Collins, intern manager," the man introduced himself in a flat but disapproving tone. "I don't know how you got in here, but I hope you don't waste my time. We don't have room for dreamers here." Marcus remained composed. He had been underestimated before. "I'm not a dreamer, sir. I'm here to learn and work hard." Collins smirked. "We'll see about that. But don't expect anyone to hold your hand. Here, only results matter." The room fell silent. Marcus could feel the cold hostility in Collins' voice. He didn't need anyone to tell him. Collins didn't believe he was capable, or even worthy of being here. A blonde-haired woman sitting nearby, Emily, tried to ease the tension. "Come on, Andrew, at least give him a chance. Everyone has to start somewhere." Collins scoffed, folding his arms. "Opportunities aren't handed out, Emily, and I doubt he can keep up." Marcus clenched his fist slightly, took a deep breath, and remained calm. He knew the only way to respond was to prove himself through action. The next morning, as Marcus walked into the coffee station, he immediately stopped in his tracks. On the counter sat a plain white mug with a crude label, "Mug for Black People." Marcus stared at it, a wave of disappointment washing over him. He hadn't expected to see something like this here, not in a high-profile firm on Wall Street. Things like this should have ended in the last century. Without a word, Marcus turned away and walked into the restroom. He looked at himself in the mirror, took a deep breath, and splashed cold water on his face, trying to clear his mind. Just then the door opened, and a familiar voice spoke. "You all right, Marcus?" Marcus turned and saw Richard Sterling, the CEO of the company, standing there. Through the reflection in the mirror, Richard studied him with a look of concern. Curious, but not intrusive. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then forced a small smile. "Yes, sir. Just taking a moment to adjust." Richard stepped to the sink, washing his hands before glancing at Marcus through the mirror. "I know this environment isn't easy, especially when you're not following the conventional path. But you know what? In the market, beyond vision, you need the right approach." Marcus furrowed his brows, listening intently. Richard continued, "You don't have to do everything by the book. Start from where you believe is right. Investing isn't just about numbers. It's about how you approach problems and people. If you try to fit into the mold of everyone else, you'll always be a step behind." Marcus remained silent, letting the words sink in. Richard Sterling wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, his words carried weight. Before leaving the restroom, Richard glanced at Marcus one last time. "Do your job well, Marcus. Don't let anyone define your worth except yourself." The door closed, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He looked at himself in the mirror again, this time with a different expression. Maybe, just maybe, he had found a new path forward. Marcus sat quietly at his small desk, flipping through pages of market data. Unlike the other interns, he wasn't given a list of potential clients, but that didn't mean he would give up. If no one handed him an opportunity, he would create one for himself. He began researching overlooked stocks, those that had been asleep, ignored by the market for years, only to suddenly skyrocket at an astonishing pace. He searched for patterns in history, delving into special cases, companies that had once been unknown but suddenly became overnight sensations. "History always repeats itself," he muttered, eyes glued to the screen. Marcus called them the unicorn stocks, stocks that had been dismissed, unnoticed, but once the opportunity arose, they surged dramatically. He believed that if he could identify one of them before the market realized its true value, it would be the key to massive profits. But he knew that numbers alone weren't enough. To turn his ideas into reality, he needed clients willing to take risks, those who were ready to bet and test their luck. So, Marcus stepped away from his desk, leaving behind the dry reports of the office. He went where real investors gathered: golf courses, financial exhibitions, and high-profile networking events. There were no flashing stock tickers or tense meetings, only casual conversations on lush green fairways and firm handshakes in elegant conference halls. The first time Marcus stepped into an exclusive golf club, he felt like he had entered another world. Around him were wealthy businessmen and top investors laughing and discussing the market while enjoying their perfect swings. Marcus walked to the small bar, ordered a glass of water, and observed. A group of investors stood nearby, chatting about a rising startup. He took a deep breath, stepped closer, and positioned himself within earshot of the conversation. "That's interesting. That company reminds me of another case. Tesla's stock before it exploded," he said casually. The group turned to look at him. A silver-haired man in a white polo shirt raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" Marcus smiled, keeping his tone calm. "Marcus Carter, intern at Sterling & Co. I'm researching unicorn stocks, stocks that have been overlooked but have immense growth potential." Another man in the group, dressed in a black suit, folded his arms and stared at Marcus. "And you think you can spot those stocks?" Marcus didn't flinch. "Not all of them, but I believe that if we catch the right moment, We can identify stocks that will change the game. And history shows that this has happened before. The silver-haired man nodded thoughtfully. An intern who can analyze stocks like this? Not bad. The man in the black suit chuckled. Would you bet on this, Marcus? Marcus didn't hesitate. If I had the capital, I would invest immediately. But what I do have is persistence and vision. I just need to find the right people who believe in that. The group burst into laughter, but this time it wasn't a laugh of ridicule, it was recognition. At a financial exhibition, Marcus faced another challenge. He overheard a heated debate between two major investors. One argued that AI technology would completely reshape the market, while the other insisted that real estate was still the safest investment. Marcus moved closer and carefully spoke up. I think you both have valid points, but if we only focus on the present, we'll miss future opportunities. The most important question is, do we want to invest in something stable or something with the potential to explode? One of the men turned, studying Marcus for a long moment before asking, Where do you work? Marcus flashed a confident smile. Intern at Sterling & Co. The man nodded, a hint of interest in his eyes. An intern with this kind of approach? Impressive. I'll remember your name. Marcus knew he was heading in the right direction. He didn't stop there. He continued expanding his network, building a contact list, not just for polite handshakes, but for real, valuable conversations. At a high-profile networking event, a major investor approached him. You don't seem like the other Sterling interns. Marcus smirked. That's because I'm not. I'm looking for opportunities that others overlook. And I think you're someone who understands the value of that more than anyone. The man chuckled. I like your style. Send me your analysis next week. I want to see if you're as good as you say you are. Marcus knew that opportunities didn't come from luck. They came from effort and persistence. And little by little, he was making people see him differently. The challenges never stopped. Some investors bluntly rejected him. Who are you to tell me where to invest? Or, you're too young to understand how this market works. But Marcus didn't give up. He remembered every rejection, every door that slammed in his face. Then one day, his phone buzzed. A message from one of the investors he had met. Marcus, I want to hear more about your ideas. Let's meet tomorrow morning. Marcus stared at the screen, his heart pounding. The opportunity he had been waiting for might have finally arrived. That day, Marcus stood in front of the mirror, carefully adjusting his tie. Today was an important day. He was about to meet his first client, an experienced and well-capitalized investor. His suit wasn't high-end, but he had pressed every crease meticulously. He needed to make the best possible impression. Just as he stepped out of the office, Marcus suddenly felt his foot caught. A strong force tripped him, sending him crashing onto the floor right in front of a group of other interns. His important documents scattered everywhere. His glasses fell and shattered on the ground. A low chuckle came from Andrew Collins, the intern manager, who had deliberately stuck out his foot. Oh, careful there, Carter. Wall Street can be dangerous for the clumsy. The surrounding interns laughed, with one sneering, Wow, who goes to meet a client with broken glasses? The client might mistake you for a beggar. Marcus clenched his fists, his heartbeat pounding with anger. But he knew that reacting now would only escalate things without solving anything. He took a deep breath, pushed aside his frustration, and quickly gathered his papers. Collins shrugged, smirking before walking away, while Marcus focused on picking up his documents. He had no time to waste on childish games, but the incident had cost him too much time. By the time he left the office, he was already cutting it close to his appointment. Left with no other option, he called the client while rushing to the meeting location. When he arrived, Marcus was out of breath, adjusting his now slightly disheveled outfit. He spotted the middle-aged man, his first client, standing next to a sleek, luxury car. The man glanced at his watch before turning to Marcus with a displeased look. "You're late," he said bluntly, his tone laced with irritation. "I sincerely apologize," Marcus responded quickly, bowing slightly. "Something unexpected happened, but I assure you I won't waste any more of your time. If you don't mind, I can present my analysis right now in your car while you head to your next destination. That way, I can explain everything on the go." The man raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the proposal. After a moment, he smirked and nodded. "Fine, but you have exactly 30 minutes. If I'm not convinced by then, don't expect a second meeting." Marcus didn't hesitate. He opened his briefcase. Despite his broken glasses, he strained to focus on the numbers and charts. As the car started moving, he launched into his analysis of the potential stock he had identified. 10 minutes passed. The man remained silent, merely observing Marcus. But instead of the initial disinterest, a hint of intrigue appeared in his gaze. 20 minutes passed. He nodded slightly as Marcus presented a critical example, his hand resting on his chin in deep thought. 30 minutes passed. Just as Marcus finished his analysis, the man suddenly burst into laughter. "You're quite the character. Who in their right mind meets a client looking like this? Disheveled, wearing broken glasses, and talking like they're running a race." Marcus laughed along. "I believe the stock market doesn't judge people by their appearance, but by what they can bring to the table. Besides, I think I just met your time requirement." The man chuckled even more, nodding approvingly. "You really are different. I like your spirit, Marcus. I'll invest in this stock based on your analysis, but remember, don't keep me waiting next time." Marcus exhaled in relief, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "I won't let that happen again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity." As the car came to a stop, Marcus stepped out, but something immediately felt off. The surrounding buildings didn't look like anything in Wall Street. When he glanced up at a street sign, his jaw dropped. "Wait a minute. This isn't New York," he muttered. The man laughed heartily from inside the car. "Good luck, kid. Don't forget to double-check your destination." Marcus shook his head, laughing to himself. "I guess I learned another lesson today, but for now, looks like I need to find a bus stop." He turned to walk away, feeling energized. His first client meeting wasn't perfect, but it was a victory. And for Marcus, that was all that mattered. Not long after, the stock soared exactly as Marcus had predicted. The news spread quickly, and his first client couldn't contain his excitement. The moment he saw the profit figures on the report, he burst into laughter and gave Marcus a strong pat on the back. "Kid, you actually pulled it off. I've never seen anyone close their first deal with such vision," he exclaimed, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Do you have any idea how many people on Wall Street laughed when I said I was investing in that stock? Now they're all biting their nails in regret." Marcus chuckled, unable to hide the satisfaction bubbling inside him. "I just relied on the data and a little intuition, sir. But if it weren't for your trust, I wouldn't have had this opportunity." The man crossed his arms and shook his head, still laughing. "Trust? Don't be ridiculous. You don't need anyone to trust you. You just need to prove you're right. And you did." Without hesitation, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Hey, I'm sitting here with a young guy who's got real potential. He just made me a solid return. You want a real investment advisor with vision? Meet him right away." Marcus was stunned, as his first client not only expressed his satisfaction but eagerly introduced him to other major investors. Within a week, he had a series of new meetings lined up, people who had heard about the intern who discovered a unicorn stock. Gradually, Marcus adapted to the fast-paced rhythm of Wall Street. Every morning he walked into the office with growing confidence, working tirelessly, making calls, attending events, and expanding his network. He understood that in this world, only results determined who was truly great. After a month of relentless effort, Marcus began to attract serious attention. Not only did he rank as the top-performing intern in brokerage sales, but he also secured a massive deal with a wealthy investor from Dubai, a contract that even full-time employees had never managed to land. The name Marcus Carter started appearing more frequently in internal meetings and performance reports. Those who once looked down on him were now forced to see him in a new light. When the latest performance report reached the executive board, Richard Sterling personally called Marcus to his office. Marcus stepped in, his heartbeat quick, but his gaze steady. Sterling sat there holding the report, his expression filled with satisfaction. "You've done exceptionally well, Marcus," he said in a deep, firm voice. "I've always believed that real talent isn't defined by background or degrees. It's defined by effort and intelligence." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. He knew that what he had achieved today wasn't due to luck, but to countless days of relentless learning and hard work. No one could deny Marcus's success any longer. Andrew Collins, the intern manager who had once dismissed him, now had no choice but to accept the truth. Marcus Carter had proven he was worthy. A few days later, during a company meeting, an official announcement was made. Marcus Carter was formally hired at Sterling & Co. The entire trading floor buzzed with chatter. Some congratulated him, some were shocked, but everyone knew he had accomplished something few had ever expected. Just then, the stock market erupted. Marcus's recommended stock continued to skyrocket. Numbers surged across the screens, and investors scrambled to get in, pushing its value to record highs. The trading floor was electric with cheers, firm handshakes, and groans of regret from those who had missed out on the golden opportunity. The name Marcus Carter was no longer just that of an outstanding intern. He had become a force to be reckoned with. Those who once mocked him now stood in silent admiration, their expressions shifting from disbelief to respect. Looking out from his new office window, Marcus watched the bustling streets of Wall Street below. Many like him, once underestimated, were still out there fighting to prove themselves. But now, he was no longer just another anonymous intern. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. "Marcus, I have a new opportunity I think you'll be interested in. Meet me at Empire Club at 7 p.m. Don't let me down." Marcus smirked. Another opportunity had arrived. And this time, he wasn't just chasing opportunities. He was creating them. Because sometimes, a simple act of kindness in the rain could lead to a life-changing opportunity. But for Marcus Carter, this was just the beginning.